All right, folks, let's get this party started. I hope all is well. Welcome once again, 86 Boxing. We're going to be talking boxing history. Thank you. Thank you for being in attendance. I also want to shout out Mark Allen Baker. He was on here a couple of days ago. We talked about his latest book, the Jack Dillon book, A Giant Slayer. So certainly I appreciate him taking the time to come on. And as a matter of fact, we still have to do the book giveaway. So I'll try to set that up. I have received some input from the website, at least those who submitted things. And I just want to make sure, hey, the opportunity has been presented there just so it's clear. So I'll do another post and then I'll just go with it from there, select the person, and hey, we move on, do the thing. But anyway, I did want to shout out Mark Allen Baker. So be sure to go check out that interview, that session on the great Jack Dillon, which is a heck of a book right there for sure. Shout out to my man Josh Taylor dropped by. Shout out there to you, Josh, my fellow Josh there. Appreciate you dropping by. Thanks for joining. So today, of course, we're going to be talking about the Dempsey Gibbons fight. No, maybe, because there was a video on it here on this channel last week that posted. And it is a fight that went down in 1923. Crazy, right? 1923. So doing things a little bit different. I decided I'd pull it up. We can kind of go through some of the key points so you can think about what I was thinking as I was going through the process of creation. As you know, when you're going through anything video related as far as editing, there are some things you keep in, there are some things you take out, and there are different strings of, or there are different methods, etc., of how you want to go about it. And in this case, I'll just kind of touch on any high points or any subject matter that I think will be of interest as we go through it. Shout out to the man Boz there. Boz's Boxing says, howdy, Josh. Hey, appreciate you dropping by, Boz. Thanks for joining in, my friends. Be sure to go check out Boz's Boxing, the channel. If you search Boz's Boxing in the search bar, it will pop up. Be sure to subscribe to Boz. Thanks for dropping by there, buddy. And we'll be back shortly with some boxing shit talk. But that being said, hey, we're here to talk about Dempsey versus the great Tommy Gibbons. As you know, Tommy Gibbons, he was one of the greatest light heavyweights ever. And I guess you could throw him in a mix there with heavyweights, though his best work probably was at light heavyweight. And he did compete for the title in this Montana fight that is one for the ages, no doubt about it. Certainly one for the ages. And I think that just making this video, I wanted to dive a little bit more into it. And I think that, you know, I was shocked with a lot of things that transpire in terms of how this actually went about. So it is very interesting. As Boz notes there, Tommy had a very good career. Yes, indeed, he did. And hopefully we can talk a little bit about it, but this was probably his most famous fight, the marquee fight. We have it on film, and of course he was going up against Jack Dempsey, who was the biggest athlete in the world at that particular time. Jack Dempsey, the Manassas Mauler. So we'll kick this thing off here, and then we'll, when that timing is right, you all can hear it. I have it low here on my end, but essentially we'll be going through and talk about some of those key points that work out. Shout out to my man Paul Bright. Appreciate you there, Paul Bright, in the mix here. Semper Fidelis. Yeah, glad to be back. Hey, it's good. We get to chat about some boxing history there. But man, appreciate you dropping by, Paul, as always. So look there to you, buddy. Oh, look at that picture there. Dempsey Gibbons. That's on the day of the fight. And as you know, this was a fight that went down in Shelby, Montana. Shelby, Montana, of all places, folks. Would you expect heavyweight title fight in Shelby, Montana? I don't know. This happened. I didn't look into it, but I'm assuming that, yeah, there was probably not another one. And I don't know if there was ever a marquee fight there beyond such. Of course, we know Jack Dempsey, and this just kind of ties into it. So I didn't dive into, like, all of the particulars, you know, surrounding his record, etc., height, reach, and so on and so forth. Same with Tommy, because of course,
Dubbed the
at
Manasseh
least with
Baller,
Dempsey. I
Jack
mean,
Dempsey's
one of the
career spanned
most
from
popular boxers ever. So a
1914
lot is
to
known about him.
1927.
Tommy Gibbons, not as
Dempsey helped usher
popularly
in boxing's
known
first $1 million gate
in
against
comparison
George
to Dempsey,
Carpentier
but he was
on
a hell of a
July
fighter.
2nd,
Him
at Ball's 30
along with his
acres
brother
in Jersey City,
Mike.
New Jersey.
Now I'll pause it here. So this I just threw this in here because that was the fight that happened beforehand. It was the Dempsey versus Carpentier. That fight, of course, the first $1 million gate fight. Now that fight is on the channel, or there's a video on the channel. I even mentioned it. I think I mentioned it here in the video. As a matter of fact, let me let that continue to play because I think I mentioned it.
There
But
were more than
yeah, this
80,000
was
fans
80,000
attended,
plus
and the
that were
fight
there for this
generated
fight. So this was 1921, 1.7 million at that particular
$1,737,270,
time.
with tickets
Insane.
priced from $5
And
and 50
this,
cents
yeah, as
up
mentioned, Dempsey,
to
Carpentier, New
$50.
Jersey, Bulls,
This
30
fight
acres.
gave Dempsey what was
Can you
his
believe that?
highest payday thus
I
far in
mean,
his career.
that's
And back
insane. And
in
of course, like this
1920,
Shelby,
on
Montana
December
fight,
11th,
they
it was
built the
reported
stadium
that
then and
Tex
there.
Richards' assistant at Thatcher was
So
hotly
the stadium
pursuing
was
a
built
matchup between
specifically
Jack
for
Dempsey
that
and
Carpentier
Tommy
fight,
Gibbons
just
of
as
St. Paul,
will be
Minnesota.
the case here in this Shelby,
Gibbons was one
Montana
of the
fight.
greatest light heavyweights
Sure.
in history, and
Tommy
family for
Gibbons,
those in the
he's the man that
heavyweight
was
ranks as
selected,
well.
but there were some others
And
that were
here's
in the
someone
mix
call
as
a
well.
fighter underrated. Tommy Gibbons most certainly fits that bill. His older brother, Mike Gibbons, was one of the greatest
Pause it there. I had to throw Mike in because, of course, Mike is the brother of Tommy Gibbons. And like Tommy, he's one of the greatest boxers to grace the sport. As a matter of fact, some might rate Mike higher, because he was just on that level. And he didn't get a world title, but certainly when you think about the greatest to never win a world title, I mean, Mike Gibbons, he has to be mentioned. And I bring that up because he was a middleweight. Generally, you would fight guys in and around that way, but middleweight. But he's often not mentioned when you think about some of the great middleweights that the sport has seen. And it's almost a travesty in some sense because he is no doubt one of the great middleweights the sport has seen. Of course, Tommy, he has the luxury of what as well of being able to work with his brother, who was also great. So that's a plus right there. So fighting family. Bob's mentioned Shelby, Montana. How many people live there? Then 600. Yeah. So according to the 1920 census, it was 500 and something. So you can give or take. Say we got to once we got to 1923, it was shortly. So 1922, they had seen an oil boom. So you could roughly say maybe it was around 1,000 people, or potentially less, maybe slightly over, but they were just there specifically trying to reap the benefits of oil being found nearby. It was not just Shelby specifically, but just in the surrounding areas there in Montana. But yeah, 19 or 527 people, if I recall correctly, in the 1920 census, which is pretty much a small town, otherwise wouldn't be known. You certainly wouldn't think of it being the host of a
middleweights in
world
boxing
heavyweight
history,
championship fight,
so he's
which it
essentially
ended up
part of a
being.
fighting family. Tommy,
It's pretty
to his point,
crazy.
had
Shout out to my
dignitaries
man
of
Bruce
all
Gas,
time,
Bruce
great
Gas,
world
Boxing
champions
Jazz and
such
more.
as
Hey, I
Harry
appreciate you
Greb,
there, Bruce. Hey,
George
that's
Chip, and
be sure to go
Battling
check out
Levitsky,
Bruce.
to
All of you
name a
that are here
few.
now, be sure to go subscribe, check out
Noted
Bruce.
for solid
He
footwork
is
and defense,
he has a lot of great
Gibbons'
content on
instinct
his
was
channel.
sound
You
in the
get to
ring,
get into
and
some
his
historic stuff
ability
as
to
well. So
impart made him a
appreciate you there, Bruce
justifiable
Gas,
foe for
Boxing
Dempsey.
Jazz, and more.
The same could be said of Harry Greb, but we'll save that for
Harry
another day.
Greb. Now, I didn't dive. Well, I'll bring up Harry Greb again in the video, but as we know, at this particular time, Harry Greb was also a fighter who theoretically was in the running for Dempsey. Theoretically, of course, he didn't get an offer or anything of that nature. But that being said, if you know, you know. He was in the running there for sure. Harry Greb, man, he's always a great subject to bring up.
Back in July
But it
1921,
is what
in
it
the
is.
aftermath of the Carpentier victory,
All
articles were
right.
immediately pinned calling for Gibbons to be the next
Yeah, thank you
Dempsey
all for being
opponent,
here again.
as
86
extreme
Boxing.
heavyweight
Hey, we're here
boxing
talking about
matures.
Dempsey versus
Competing in world
Gibbons, Shelby,
featherweights
Montana.
between Johnny Kilbane
Johnny
and
Kilbane.
William
There were a lot of
Anderson,
fighters, as a matter of
Joseph
fact,
Gavin
who had
Dempsey signed for
analysis on
Dempsey
this
versus
fight. Now, I didn't
Carpentier.
include their
On
information
July
there. decided to throw in the tidbit about Jack Johnson because this was around the time that he was getting out of Leavenworth. Now we know that Jack Johnson certainly was not at his best, but he tried to throw his name out there in the running, and I don't think it was ever taken serious. And I know we've talked about before, there's always been rumors of a potential fight that took place between Dempsey and Jack Johnson. I don't know, behind closed doors fight. I haven't seen any compelling enough evidence to make me think that it did happen. That being said, it's not out of the picture that it happened. You know, I just haven't seen any compelling enough evidence to say that it did. But it would have been a hell of a fight, you know, to have seen, any way you slice it. Paul Bright, Harry Griffin, my favorite fighter from that area, no doubt about it. One of the best, for sure. I mean, one of the most polarizing figures in the sport of boxing right there, Harry Greb. When his name comes up, there's so many different things that are associated with it. But one of the most polarizing for sure. So at this time, that article was just shown, it was talking about the guys that were in the running to face him, or to face Dempsey, that is. Bill Brennan, he did fight Brennan. I mean, that would have been, you know.
With the title at stake. There was also Captain Bob Roper.
He won't be widely known these days, but he was a heavyweight competing during that period. Same with Bob Martin. These are two that probably aren't widely known, but they were in the running. Bartley Madden. Some of you may know Bartley Madden a bit more because we do have video of him. He fought Harry Wills, of course, amongst others that he was tied in the ring with. And of course, Harry Wills. So these were the top 6 that were in the running. Of course, we would have loved to see Wills versus Dempsey. As a matter of fact, I will say, I was reading some articles surrounding such, and I know Dempsey did want that fight, actually. Dempsey wanted Harry Wills, but I guess it was more so Doc Kern's ex-record the reason that it didn't happen. But I know that Dempsey said he wanted that fight, so he was not ducking it in that sense. Cheers, Omar. Salute to Omar Fonseca there, dropping that story. Hey, appreciate you there, buddy. Be sure to check out the Ball of Buds podcast. Hit up Omar, the Ball of Buds podcast. Be sure to drop by, check it out, subscribe. Got some great content there you'll be able to check out. No doubt. So appreciate you there, Omar. Salute to my man Clubber D out there somewhere as well.
On March 22nd, 1922, Harry Greb wrote an article providing details on why he felt he could outbox Dempsey.
Hey, pause it there. I think Boz had the question. Are we doing the Dempsey Duck Greb thing again? LOL. You're funny there, Boz, but I did throw Greb in there, but it's not from that perspective that you're talking about. But his name was in the running, at least by his own volition, at the very least. Greb wanted that fight, but of course, we know it didn't happen. There is the information surrounding a sparring session between Greb and Dempsey, and that being one of the things that made it seemingly made Dempsey and team a little more reluctant to go with Harry Greb, even though he was a middleweightish, light heavyweightish in between there. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I'm not saying me, Boz, personally. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a duck. I'm not saying it's an all-out duck or anything, but it had to be brought up. And what I'm pointing out here is the fact that Greb, hey, he penned an article telling why he could be the guy there for Dempsey. And not only that, he beat Tommy Gibbons. So he was most certainly in the running there, Boz. Graham was most certainly in the running.
Defeated Tommy Gibbons.
You see, he defeated Tommy Gibbons there. I don't know.
To the heavyweight world champion.
You would have thought Graham would have gotten in fair shape. Hey, I know some others know more.
Still favored Tommy Gibbons.
But it's funny, Boz. Who would have won? That's a different story. Now, I've said before that I think that, yeah, Dempsey, I would have been favoring Dempsey. But I didn't think that Graham could have won. It was possible for sure.
By November 1st, word out of New York.
It was that Poland guy who was really championing that theory.
Tex Rickard, who saw Gibbons as the logical
opponent. There, shout out to Poland Ball. Where you at, Poland Ball?
Quoted as stating the following with regards to Gibbons. I think that Gibbons is a great fighter.
So,
Furthermore,
I threw this in here, quote from Tex Rickard. As we know, Tex Rickard, the greatest promoter of that period, and really in any period, if you stack it up, promotion for promotion.
I
I
would be
mean,
glad to stage a battle
it's a
between
top level
Gibbons
individual
and
there.
champion.
Tex
can't get
Rickard,
that
some of the
matchup,
greatest,
I would like to
largest,
have
and
Gibbons
greatest
and
fights
Greb for a
in
return bout,
boxing were
Gibbons
promoted by
and
him,
Gene
and he
Tilley.
brought in sort of that
Yes, indeed. I think that Gibbons would be
mega
a worthy
event
opponent for
style as
this
far as, hey,
tradition, and
we're just
hopefully
going to
such
pick
a
that
match can be
location, we're
arranged.
going to build that stadium, arena,
On
or
December
whatever it may
22nd
be,
in his hometown of
specifically
St.
for
Paul,
that event. We're going
Minnesota,
to throw all we
Tommy
need
Gibbons
to
himself was quoted as
into it
stating,
there on the
"If
front
Dempsey
end,
can be
and
induced
from
into the
there,
ring with
we're going to
me,
reap the
there will
benefits.
be no
And
squabble
we
or
know the people will
return. So
come.
as far as I'm concerned,
And I
two
will say
big
that it
suits
was
all
not,
that
I
is
repeat, it was
necessary is
not
to get
Tex
Dempsey's
Rickard
signature.
who was behind this
Sights were
fight right
clearly
here
set on
as
this
far as
matchup, as
Montana,
it would
because
be
I
an
doubt Ted
unlikely
would have,
challenge to stake their
or
claim
Tex
at the
Rickard would have
premier location.
been signed off
This was
on
none
doing
other
doing
than
it there in Shelby, Montana, folks. Shelby, Montana.
It should be
Shout out
noted that
to
Tommy Gibbons continued to
Rodolfo
fight
Rivera
in
Jr.
1922.
is in the mix
He
here.
took
Appreciate you
on
there, Rodolfo.
Gary Greb in addition to two fights to
Rodolfo
admit
says
to
Polar
among
Ball
several other
2028.
notable
Where's he at,
champions.
Rodolfo? Where Polar Ball?
Dempsey
Where you at
remained
there, buddy?
outside of the ring,
I need to
cashing
chat
in
with
on
you.
his fame and glory as the most popular
Salute that to
figure
you,
in
Rodolfo.
sports.
Hey, get Polar Ball in here,
Shelby, Montana
Rodolfo.
is a small town located in the north central part
Hey,
of
but
Montana.
Dempsey at this time, as we know,
In
he was
1922,
well, he
oil
hadn't
was
fought in
discovered
first,
near the
basically 20
area
years,
that
or
sent the
2
town
years
into
by
a
the time,
frenzy
or roughly
as
around
an
2 years
influx of
around the time
hopeful
that this
oil
fight took
barons
place between
flocked to
he
the
and
town.
Tommy Gibbons,
To
because
put things into
of course
perspective,
he had that
the
Carpentier fight.
1926
Talking about $1 million gate, the
of
first
just
ever $1 million
547
gate.
residents.
The financials
So
behind
the
that was
thought of
absolutely
Shelby hosting
insane. As a matter of
fight,
fact,
let alone
check
one
it
of
out
the
on the channel.
members
You'll
of the
see.
World
I
Heavyweight
share some
Championship
information
bout in the
regarding
roaring
that
20s was
on
even a thought.
the or in the
It was.
in the video
The aim was
regarding
July
how it came
4th,
to be.
1923, in
And of
Shelby.
course, the company
The plans would be
RCA
for the
being
ring to
behind the
be
radio
built
broadcast,
specifically for the
250,000
contest.
people, and the
Dempsey
rest was
was
history.
guaranteed a
But
staggering
Dempsey paid, I think when you
$250,000,
chalk it up
while
to
Gibbons
the
was set to take home
inflation or whatever,
$50,000. This gives a glimpse of the type of
well,
purse
in
Dempsey
addition
could
to his
handle.
purse, I know it was over $500,000 that made
Check out
with
our
the
video on the channel
radio
that dives into the
rights,
intricate
etc., that were
details of
tied
his
to it, the
$1 million
residuals.
gate bout
There I
with
go. I
Mr.
mentioned it there. So
Carpentier.
check out that
On
video
March
right there,
3rd,
folks, for
1923,
sure.
a
Check out that
report out of
video.
Helena,
But Dempsey
Montana
made a
stated that the
crazy
town
amount
of
of money,
Shelby
and
would
so
be
it would have
gifted
been
by the
with the
$100,000
residuals
required
from the radio and
as
all
the
that stuff. You're
first
talking
deposit,
probably in the
and that
neighborhood of
all
6,
that
7
awaited
million,
was
somewhere in there that he
approval on the
probably
fight,
made from that
which was
contest.
at the stead of the
Probably
Montana
$7 million
Attorney
or
General.
more. It's crazy.
On March
It's
15th,
crazy.
reporting out of Billings, Montana, noted that the night before, Shelby
Get
officials had
Lewandowski
raised
here.
$55,000 in cash,
Oh yeah,
along with
Lewandowski.
receiving other pledges for cash to be provided by oilmen from the area to boost their intent on hosting the contest.
Funny.
The pledges would bring the total to $200,000 if commitments were kept.
All right, excuse me. So this is when
On
we get
March
into the
16th, the Billings
Montana
Gazette reported
aspect
that
of
the
it.
Montana State
So they
American
tied this,
Legion
or
in
there's a
conjunction
connection
with
to
the
the
Dillon
American
County Post
Legion out of
would
Montana
manage
at
the
that
fight
time.
proceedings.
Different
They noted that the
jurisdictions
intent was for
and
the
their
profits from
involvement.
the
So a
gate to
portion
be
of this
donated
was
to
expected
disabled
to be
soldiers
donated
from
to
Montana.
wounded soldiers,
They also stated that
etc.
applications for
There in
thousands of
Montana.
tickets had already been received by the
Wounded
ticketing
veterans,
department.
I guess, active
Minneapolis
soldiers,
sports
whatever it may
reporter
be.
Mike Collins, who was brought in to
So this
assist the
individual
American
right here,
Legion,
Mike Collins,
predicted a
he's out of
record-breaking date with the
Minneapolis,
possibility of a $1
and
million gate.
he had been involved with
It
boxing,
doesn't stop there,
from
as
what I recall.
representatives from
That being
Canada
said,
who were present
of
at
course,
the time of the meeting
this might
promised
be
an
his
attendance
most
of 10 to
known,
20,000 fight
I guess you could
patrons
argue,
from
blunder,
Alberta alone.
but it wasn't
They
just
said that
him.
the
I mean, there were a lot of
predictions
people
were at a high
involved.
would be an
They had a lot of
understatement.
expectations there.
On this same day in New York,
Uh,
Doc Kearns quelled the
and yeah,
notion
very
that
interesting.
Dempsey
So here, this picture, this is Dempsey versus Luis Angel Firpo. Now, around this same time, of course, we know back in it might have been 1920 when he fought Firpo, when Dempsey fought Firpo. But there were rumors out there at this particular time that Dempsey had an offer, or at least Doc Kearns, the two, had an offer from Argentina to rematch Luis Angel Firpo in Argentina for $750,000. And of course, that would have been, from my understanding, given the time, that would have been, I believe, probably the largest purse ever for that particular period. $750,000 apparently for his purse. To put that into perspective, of course, Dempsey's purse for the Carpentier contest was over 300,000 in terms of, or around 300,000 in terms of his actual purse. I do mention it in the video. And for this Montana contest with Gibbons, ultimately 310,000 was the expected purse, which you'll see it touch on. Now think about that. That 310,000 with inflation for today, it was roughly 5.8 million. So think about if Dempsey would have gotten a $750,000 purse to face Luis Angel Firpo. That would have been insane. The numbers just would have been insane. Now I don't know if it was ever serious. There were articles written about it. I don't know if it was truly serious, and if they could have done such, but maybe that would have been a mega fight.
March 24th, and it was noted that former professional boxer turned promoter out of Cleveland, Tommy McGinty, offered $100,000 to.
So he offered $100,000 to host it in Cleveland. So there are a lot of dueling offers, I guess you can say, or at least that's what it seemed to be. That's what Doc Kearns would have led you to believe as well. New York State Athletic Commission, they didn't let it happen.
On March 31st, the Attorney General,
and that would have been William Muldoon.
Dempsey Gibbons bout proposed for Shelby, Montana, did not break.
So William Muldoon, if you remember him, he was there. He trained John L. Sullivan for his matchup against Jake Kilrain. So he would go on. He was a Greco-Roman wrestler, top level, all that stuff, world champion type guy. He would go on to be the commissioner for the New York State Athletic Commission. Now, $200,000 is what it initially was going to be paid to Jack Dempsey. And of course, we know here with time that changed.
Along with another $35,000 in negotiable pledges to put up the $110,000 forfeiture asked by the two fighters.
Montana love.
All that would be needed now was the two fighters' signatures for which Mike Collins was on the job.
Yeah, Lewandowski is on point.
On April 7th, it was reported out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, that Mike Collins had received all signatures, Tommy Gibbons included.
Right, so as we're going through this period of it,
and all that awaited was the
they were still trying to get full agreement from the Dempsey side, Doc Kearns. So Doc Kearns, he was really the key player in this happening.
Tommy Gibbons would receive $50,000 for the contest.
Gibbons was expected to get
$50,000 as soon as he signed.
And Dempsey at one point was going to get $200,000 or $210 because they had a forfeiture amount for about $110,000
to Dempsey 24 hours before going into the first round. Meaning that Dempsey would.
And what is noted here is that Dempsey, he was going to receive a significant portion, $150,000, so roughly close to $3 million he would have received prior to even stepping in the ring.
He felt that Tommy Gibbons would draw well from the Dakotas,
Nebraska, Minnesota, one of the biggest, I think the biggest issue with this fight, outside of it being in Montana,
Nevada, Colorado,
was the expectation that so many people were going to travel and support this contest, even though it did have Jack Dempsey there. But you're talking about a small town. Even at that time, I doubt a ton of people would have known of it. You had to get there by train generally. There are other options, of course, but train was going to be the kind of lead or main means of transportation to get there. So that was a huge issue, them banking their stakes on this fight, drawing as many people as they were expecting, because they were thinking $1 million gate.
On April 12th,
Collins,
along with Tommy Gibbons' manager.
Now on the screen right here, that's Tommy Gibbons' manager, Eddie Kane. But Collins and company, they were thinking that this could be $1 million gate. in Shelby, Montana.
On
Like
April
like
18th,
said,
it was reported that
at the
Eddie
time
Payne
they may have
stated that all terms of the
had
fight had
like
been
1,000
accepted,
residents,
and only the
maybe,
signatures of the principal was all that remained,
roughly
and
somewhere
was
around there.
regarded as
A
a
lot of
formality.
the financial
During their
aspects
Utah
were
meeting,
geared on
Doc
pledges that
Kearns
were
agreed to
made
meet
by
Payne and
business
representatives of
people
the Shelby
there.
Post
So they
and
did have
American
some
Legion in Great
liquid
Falls,
cash,
Montana,
but
within 4 or 5
other
days
pieces
to
of it were
sign
built on
articles.
pledges and others
In a
providing that
supplementary
offering.
statement, Mike
Successful
Collins noted that the
business
fight would be
people,
held in a
oil
natural
barons,
amphitheater
whatever
1
it may
mile
be,
west
that
of
were part of
Shelby.
Montana in and around
The
those
seating
surrounding
capacity
areas.
would be 40,000.
Crazy.
Construction work would proceed
Oh, Dempsey was
immediately
hoping
after
Stan
signing
catch
of
up.
the
Cheers to you,
articles.
Dan. Dan the man. Hey, appreciate you dropping by there,
Interestingly,
Dan. Be sure to
neither
go check it
Collins
out, folks.
or
Dan,
Kearns
great to
stated
have you
what
in
the
here.
terms between the
Great
two
to have
parties
you in the
were,
mix.
but it was reported from
Hey,
other
all
reliable
anytime
sources
is on
that
time
Jack
there,
Dempsey would
Dan. Thanks
receive
for dropping by, buddy.
$300,000 for his end of the purse. Adjusted for inflation, $5.5 million in 2025.
$5.5 million, $300,000 at that particular time in 1923 would have been the equivalent of $5.5 million today. Crazy.
Negotiations were still ongoing. To 15 of the 127 Montana American Legion posts disapproving.
Now, some of these American Legion posts were not for this.
As the days went on, as
state adjutant, he was not for this, and they probably should have listened to him in hindsight.
The contest, despite such,
but they ended up making it happen.
Tickets went on sale in Montana,
and I think that
projected site had
they were a little bit
story in that it was the location where in
April of a little bit overzealous.
The Braves of the Blackfeet
in their thought that this was going to be what they expected. Note that they did build a $40,000 seat
a report on
amphitheater.
Said that the terms of the agreement between Dempsey and Gibbons was that Dempsey would receive $310,000 guaranteed.
So here, so it says $300,000. I mentioned in the video in itself $310,000 because there was an extra $10,000 that was a part of the forfeiture money that was submitted for this fight. So it was $110,000 in forfeiture. So that would go to Dempsey.
Carloads of lumber having been ordered, and another 100
carloads
to follow.
It's pretty crazy.
On May 15th, it was reported that a labor strike for the arena failed. There
was a labor strike, but nothing really happened.
By
only one person
there was
left.
A feeling that Dempsey was taking his training for Gibbons lightly, according to
this shot right here is Dempsey. To the far right is George Godfrey. So he was working with George Godfrey, the second coming of George Godfrey, the Lincolnville Shadow George Godfrey, for this contest. That right there, of course, is Gibbons and Mike. Well, both Gibbons, Mike and Tommy.
It was noted that Doc Kearns was a happy man, having received the second installment of the $100,000. This indeed solidified the fight, in the July 4th date being the aim.
So
the payment was made by.
It ended up being $200,000 that was received to the point of the fight actually taking place. Now,
Tracy was the new man selected to oversee the fight.
Indeed, there, right, Big George Godfrey. I mean, hey,
at the Great Falls
beast.
National Bank,
Tough guy to deal with right there, and a heck of a boxer for sure. Go look him up, folks, if you haven't. Took his namesake from the original Old Chocolate George Godfrey, but hey, the Lincolnville Shadow is very formidable as a fighter. Big guy too.
Selecting the preliminary bout fights. It was noted that 25 fire marshals and a cowboy patrol force were on duty during the event.
As mentioned, so they had received about $200,000 already in terms of Doc Kearns. Now, the offer that they made to Dempsey, as mentioned, is a crazy amount, $300,000, $310,000. It was going to be something of a challenge, I would think. Just in general, being able to pay him that much, but they thought that they would get the residuals from the actual gate.
This matchup to that of Jim Corbett taking on John.
Now, as noted here, some view Tommy Gibbons as the favorite coming into this contest.
George Stanton reported
ultimately,
there would be no changes to the
Tommy
fight.
Gibbons,
It would go on
he
as
didn't really
scheduled.
engage with
He also noted that
Dempsey
he had
in a
received
way
pledges from
to
20
put
wealthy
himself at
Montanans, which would cover the
risk
last installment of
in undue
$100,000
harm, of course.
Dempsey was to receive.
So the fight was,
Stanton noted that
probably
Dempsey's
didn't
team
live
would
up to the
receive the money
expected
the
hype.
coming Monday,
Certainly
July
not compared
2nd.
to that Corbett versus
Funding
Sullivan
still
fight.
hadn't been collected,
And I
on
think it's
July
on both
3rd around
individuals in
12:30
that
p.m.
regard.
It was reported that the fight was off.
So
In a
here,
room crowded with
so this
media,
is what made it pretty
Stanton
crazy.
and Doc
So even
Kearns
at
got
this
into an
particular
angry
point,
argument after Stanton
there were
told
issues
Kearns
with
the
getting
final
the remaining
$100,000 was not
$100,000
available, and he saw
that
no
was
prospect of
expected
raising it.
for Dempsey
Stanton
purse-wise.
noted that Dempsey ought to go ahead and fight,
100,000
considering he had
or
already been paid
90,000, whatever it may be. But
$250,000,
90,000, as
and that it
mentioned,
was
is
cruel
expected to
to
be
Gibbons for him not to
310 that
fight
he was going to
based
receive
on
in
the
totality.
$100,000 condition.
So this right here, this
Kearns
information is
stated
like
that
a
it would
day
take
before the fight.
$50,000 in cash
I want to
right
say
then and
24
collect
hours
the other
before the fight,
$50,000 from the
or
gate receipt.
within 48 hours at,
Stanton
that
noted
would,
that
I
he
guess,
did
be the
not
long
have
game, within 48
$50,000 in
hours.
cash,
But this
that
was
the
right before the fight was
$5,000
scheduled to take
pledges
place.
from
They
the
were
Montana
having issues getting
businessmen
that
who
last
had attempted to raise the
$100,000.
money had been returned.
So that spelled doom
After
right there.
several hours of back and forth and the fight being on and off, around 2:45 a.m., all parties came to an agreement.
2:45
Their
a.m.
inability to collect the last installment, Doc Kearns agreed to let the fight proceed, so as long as all preliminary costs were provided.
Got you there, Dad.
It was also agreed that Doc Kearns would have jurisdiction over all gate
considered a
receipts
bust.
until the $100,000 was collected.
Hey, you still hear me?
Whatever remaining going to the promoters.
Can you hear me?
In the midst
You
of
all
this,
still hear me?
train carrying
Good to go?
around 80 or so fight
Cheers there to
fans
you,
to
Joshua.
attend the
Appreciate
fight
you
had
dropping by
been
there, buddy.
delayed.
My fellow Joshua.
This was a
Hey,
result
we're
of the
talking
fight not being definitively
Gibbons versus
agreed on.
Dempsey, that Montana
It
fight
was
that went
noted that
down.
this, along with
Appreciate you
other
dropping by
delays,
there, Josh. Be
resulted
sure to
in
check them out,
some
folks.
fans not traveling to
Okay,
the
good to
fight.
go. Rodolfo says I'm good.
Still, on the eve
All
of
right,
the
good,
fight,
good.
it was reported that there
Good to
were
go.
a number of people
Thanks.
in Shelby, though it wasn't anywhere
So,
near the 40,000.
40,000 seats.
Given that this was a world heavyweight
Even that
title
day
match,
before,
it was
or the
viewed as
day
having
of
the
the fight,
makings of
it
the
was
most
noted
colossal
that
bust in the history of
it was
Shelby.
not 40,000 people there for
Alas,
sure.
the day was finally here.
This picture,
On
that's
July
them
4th,
in ring.
1923, Jack Dempsey would defend
I wonder what's
the
going through
world
Dempsey's
heavyweight
mind.
title
Maybe,
against Tommy Gibbons.
what about that extra $100,000 I was
One
supposed to get?
headline read, champion
You never know,
loses
but maybe.
reputation as man killer, while challenger shows he has little chance of damaging
A real
himself.
try did see the fight many from the
The
Indian
fight would
Wars. Oh, yeah.
ultimately be ruled a
Okay,
decision
cool. Good
victory
stuff,
for
yeah.
Dempsey by the referee. It was
Now, you
noted
took
that
some shots from the
Dempsey's
actual
time being
contest.
idle and not fighting could have attributed
So,
to his inability to
supposedly there were
stop
probably
Gibbons,
around
as
20
many
to
didn't expect Gibbons to
25,000
go
somewhere
past
in
7
there that
rounds.
actually were there seated
Gibbons
inside of
showed
the
great
stadium. All
skill,
of them
but
didn't
Dempsey
pay.
was the aggressor
They
and
rushed
almost
the
had
gate
Gibbons out
there
at the end of the
at the
15th
start of the
round.
contest, apparently,
There were even
and they were able to
suggestions
get in, but
for
it was
a
already a
rematch
lost
against
cause
Shelby.
by that point anyway.
Financially,
And
the fight was a
of course,
disaster, with it being
you might know of
estimated
the
that
famous
Shelby,
picture where there were a
Montana,
number of
would
the
be whole
individuals
over
that were
$100,000.
seated
The
on a
gate
hill
receipts
that
were
was,
expected to not even reach
I don't know,
half of
maybe
what Dempsey
like a
was
half a
paid.
mile away or something like that.
The view was that this would put a stain on big fight purse guarantees,
So
as there had been
they
other situations
recorded
around the country
7,200
suffering
people
a
came
similar
for
fate.
tickets,
In the end, only
$207,485 for the gate,
70,202 fans
which
paid to see the
realistically for
contest,
that particular
which
time
garnered a
is
gate
not
of
bad, especially Shelby, Montana. But of
$207,485,000.
course, as I mentioned,
The amphitheater for which
Dempsey's
Dempsey fought
purse
was estimated to have cost
$310,000.
$25,000,
So
with an
clearly,
additional
that's not happening.
$22,448.50 had to be paid out for taxes.
That previous shot was a shot from the outside area where some people were sitting on a hill watching.
Which swelled the audience to around 25,000.
I imagine it was pretty small, but they still a free view, ultimately.
The potential earnings for Dempsey was cut to under $262,000. Doc Kearns collected only $52,000
late,
of
you
the
really
final
needed to delay.
$100,000 installment.
Oh yeah.
With that funding, he paid out $1,000.
Yeah, it was not easy to get there.
Another $73,000.
And in that regard, also,
The
like
preliminary
24
bout
hours
between
before the
David
fight. It
Delaney and
wasn't
Jack Burke was
100%
canceled due to lack of
guaranteed that they were
funding.
going to actually fight. So some people
The
did not
crowd
take
was
the train
subjected to a
there
prolonged
wherever
delay,
they
and
were coming.
matchmaker Michael Collins refused to allow the title bout to proceed until funding for the
Yeah,
preliminary
indeed,
bout
there,
with a
Joshua.
referee was presented. This resulted in a heated argument between Kearns,
Yeah,
Lane, and
1960s.
Collins that
Yeah, in
escalated
terms of road connects
until
and all that stuff.
personal
Yeah,
aid
it
was
was a
provided by
challenge.
the treasurer for the
Montana,
contest,
as mentioned,
Mayor
Montana.
James
Just think about
Johnson.
that.
Tommy Gibbons walked away with nothing
Even
for his
Montana
purse,
now is a
as
heck
his
of a
agreement
haul,
was
I'd
to receive
imagine.
50% of
Look
the
where we
gate
are at this
receipts in
stage.
excess of
Like Montana, how many people have been in
$315,000
Montana? I've
guaranteed
never
for
been.
Dempsey.
I would certainly go, but just think
Gibbons
about
wasn't
that.
completely barren of profit, as he
Would you
was
go to
paid
Montana for
$5,000 by the
a
town of Shelby for
heavyweight
training
fight?
expenses
It's a little bit
between
different now, of course,
$100 and
but say
$400 a
Mike
day
Tyson was
for his
fighting
3-week
in his
training
prime.
camp, and another $5,000 for a
Would
tour
you
of
go
the
there for a
state,
Mike Tyson fight
which
in
immediately
Montana?
preceded the bout. In the
I
aftermath,
think it still could
Shelby
be a
as a
challenge
town
here,
was nearly
especially with a small
bankrupted.
town like Shelby. If I'm
4
not
months ended up
mistaken,
closing,
Shelby
including that
right
of Judge
now, I think they
Gibbons
have
and
like
Drake
3,000 and
Hall,
something
and 2
residents,
in
something like
Shelby,
that.
one being that of the
So I think it
mayor,
would have always
James
been a
Johnson.
challenge.
Shelby would take years to rebound from this huge loss associated with the
Slippery
Dempsey
Jack
Gibbons
term,
bout.
indeed, there, boss.
Let this be a cautionary tale of
Cheers
taking
to my
on
mom and
too
dad, little
much
son.
at once. One question you may be
Bow,
asking is
hey,
whether the
appreciate you there,
debacles
brother.
on
Thank
Dempsey's
you. Appreciate
inability
you
to
dropping
draw
by.
fans to Montana,
Like I said in my post, the $1
or
million
was it
gate
just
happened
that
in big cities.
Montana
No
would
doubt
have
about there,
drawn the
Josh. No doubt.
expected gate regardless?
Yeah.
For what it's worth, Dempsey would go on to have other $1 million gates.
Now, I did note that.
As for Shelby, it's still not quite that fight town that it was expected to become.
So what I noted there at the tail end was the fact that Dempsey, of course, would go on to have other $1 million gates, but I did also note that Shelby, it never quite became that fight town. I kind of had in a little comment, I guess you can say, the notion of the little comment that kind of alluded to it at the very least. Hey, I'm here, folks. I'm here. That alluded to whether Dempsey was it the fact that in Shelby and nobody could have sold or made people come out there to Shelby to create $1 million gate to Shelby. And yeah, sort of like what Joshua says here. Yeah, I mean, big cities, you kind of need those type cities around, right? Or you need those type areas for these major fights. Yeah, even to this day, where you see some success is, hey, a fighter who has made it to a larger stage and have a pretty decent sized audience. If they do a fight in their hometown, then yeah, you can get a number of people that come out. But the equivalent of what the $1 million gate would have been at that particular time, yeah, that would be more of a rarity there, That would be a rarity for sure. So they probably bit off a little bit more than they could chew there. Those old timer trading suits, yeah, they were funny looking there, Boz. Indeed. Look, if Usyk came into my town in Kansas, a small town, we would not be able to host this title fight. Indeed, there. You just think about just his purse, his purse alone. Yeah, it's just kind of like that. So it was, you could say, doomed from the start. It's pretty much what would happen here. Yes, indeed, there, Josh. Hey, thanks there, Boz. Joshua says Shelby did not become Vegas. Maybe they needed a mobster plans. Yeah. Right. It didn't quite. Boz mentioned Tyson loves Dempsey. Indeed, there. He took some of that Dempsey style and brought it to his game there in modern times, and that look as well. But certainly Dempsey, man, one of the biggest mega stars that we've seen grace the sport. The mobster that built Vegas, forgot his name. Yeah, but Vegas, yeah, it was one of those that kind of in the middle of nowhere, but of course we know what it became now. But they were having fights in like Reno, Nevada and things of that nature, and you could get a decent amount of people out there to those spots. But yeah, Shelby, Montana, I think we all, Abad says Buzzy Siegel, Okay, cool. Got you there. I remember like Bugsy Siegel and do it all illegal. Heard that in the line. I forget which song. But thanks there, brother. They needed a Bugsy if they wanted to be a fight time. Yeah, and that ultimately ended up almost completely breaking them from the standpoint of excuse me, from the standpoint of they lost in excess of $100,000 dealing with that fight, basically excess of $100,000. So that says something right there. They lost in excess of $100,000. I see some estimates saying around $200,000, up to $200,000 that was lost by those who put this fight on. Excuse me. There were 4 banks from the surrounding area that closed because, of course, it was such a financial disaster for them. Just think about that. They made $200,000, $207,000 with the gate, and that was from 7,200 people, which is not bad. And that was probably more of the realistic number they should have expected right there. And I think that would have been fine. But yeah, they overshot it by such a large margin because that 270,000 or 207,000, give or take, that would have been like 2 million, a little over 2 million, somewhere in there. Just thinking about it from, or maybe 2.5 million, somewhere in that range. Which is good for that particular time, especially for such a small town. But when you already have promised 310,000 to one of the fighters involved, I mean, it's crazy. So Dempsey didn't get that full amount. What was collected was around 262,000, and that was because of some of the ticket proceeds or whatnot. That from the video, Tommy Gibbons, he didn't actually get a purse. His purse was based on the ticket sales, and he was supposed to get whatever amount in excess of the $300,000 in ticket sales. But of course, considering they didn't make $300,000 in ticket sales, he didn't get anything for his purse. But he was supposed to get in excess of 300,000 up to 6,000. The numbers sound crazy right now, so they're thinking that they were gonna get beyond 600,000. You know what I'm saying? So it was like crazy, just in general. Josh says, I know Dempsey was pointed as a villain here, but was he really supposed to fight pretty much for free? A lot of feet. Yeah, no, you're right there. You're right, Joshua. I mean, hey, they guaranteed or were at least bringing about the illusion of them getting the amount of funding that they were thinking they were going to get for this contest. And so, yeah, it's not Dempsey's fault in terms of what they committed to from a purse perspective. So, yeah, I mean, he got the money that he committed to. If you want Jack Dempsey, this is what they agreed to. Yeah, they try to pay off Dempsey tab with cattle. Yeah, crazy. Kern said, what I would do with a bunch of cows. Got you there. Turn them into burgers. Yeah, potentially. Potentially. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think Dempsey did anything wrong. Matter of fact, Hearns was doing the negotiations. But I think that the team that was behind it, they were kind of at fault, or they were certainly at fault, because they were having issues at the stage where the fight was approaching, and you're having issues, financial issues. Then, I mean, clearly something is wrong right there. And this entire time, I'd imagine they had to be getting some numbers surrounding the ticket sales. And as I mentioned, they said it was estimated to be about 25,000 people that were in the arena or the amphitheater. And some of them just kind of rushed in. And we saw that the total sale was 7,202 tickets. So clearly they would have had some indication well beforehand that, hey, these tickets aren't flying off the shelf. the way that we expected. So it's crazy. Paul Bright says, so Gibbons worked for free. Yes, indeed. He worked for free. Now, he did get some money, but it was like the typical, like $5,000 for expenses that were associated with the fight, or associated with getting there to the fight and the training and all this stuff. So for his training, I think it was something to the tune of $100 per day he received during the period he was there. Might have been like 2 weeks or to a month, somewhere in there. And he did some type of event where he went around to different areas of Montana, like meet and greet style. But realistically, yeah, that might have been $10,000 to $15,000 in total that was associated with it, or less than that, actually, or less than the 15, I suppose, but somewhere in total. But as far as his actual purse, he got nothing. So it was like, but hey, Tommy Gibbons, I mean, he was, man, you got to give it to him, stand-up guy in that sense, because he was just like, hey, this is an opportunity, and he was taking what he could get. He knew the magnitude of this contest, and it's insane that it's insane, but he didn't get a purse, you know. As mentioned, they were thinking they were going to get a certain amount, and he was to receive, as mentioned, funding from the ticket sales once it reached the $300,000 mark. But as mentioned, it didn't get there, so it's unfortunate. So the promoter, they really didn't make any money. The only people that made money were Dempsey and Doc Kearns. The rest, crazy. And four banks, as I mentioned, closed. So if you look at the video, there were a couple of individuals that I mentioned by name in there that played a major role that pretty much lost everything, and their bank had to close. It's insane. And the notion is that Shelby, it took them years to recover from this, but realistically, I don't know. Would you consider them to have really recovered? As I mentioned, I think in the census here current day, it's like 3,000 something people. So it never really became a big town. You hosted a world heavyweight title fight, but yeah, I mean, overall, I don't think it did anything for them except for losses, you know. But I guess the real issue might have been that of the supposed oil boom. I guess things started to dry up in some sense, and that was likely another reason as well that Shelby never did take off. But there have been fights in, like when you look through some of the historic stuff, it seems that Butte, Montana, Butte, they've had some pretty decent fights. I've seen them pop up on a regular in reading stuff tied to the overall history of boxing. I've seen Butte, Montana mentioned, and there being fights there. I can't remember those specifically. I know some of the videos that I have, they tie into that. I know there have been some big fights in Butte, Montana. But that being said, Shelby, yeah, that was pretty much it. So it was a major failure. Major. Joshua says Gibbons could back out, but a shot at the title was really too much to turn down. No purse, but walk out the check. Yep, get the money in the next fight. It was a risk. Yes, indeed. Indeed, it was. And man, hey, he should have risked it a bit more in terms of kind of just going all out for it. But hey, Dempsey is a big time puncher, so you know what happens. Cheers to my man. Clubber D says, sound like an awful record deal. 360 deal indeed, right there. 360 deal. Shout out Clubber D. Be sure to go check him out, folks. Go follow Clubber D. Got some stuff jumping off there on the channel. Ball and Buzz Podcast. Be sure to check it out. I mentioned that as well. Stay there, Clubber D. Yeah, Dan mentioned no, they never recover. Yeah, right. Yeah. Dan mentions Ketchel. Why would they even host a fight in such a random town in the first place? Well, I think it was because they were a little bit too big for their britches. You never heard that term before? Well, maybe you haven't heard it, Rodolfo. Those from down south, they've heard it. they got a little bit too big for their britches, started smelling themselves, I guess you could say, because they found oil there in nearby areas, and they were like, oh, it's going to be the up and up from here for sure, because some people found some success and got some riches from oil, which had been found, and I believe in 1922. This fight was 1923. I think it was around 1922 is when they started to see things take off, per se, as it relates to oil that was found in the surrounding areas. And they're like, hey, we got people here that getting money. Let's host a world heavyweight title fight. We're going to throw our name in a hat. Big mistake. Joshua, yeah, people really wanted to event or something, I think. Yeah, they thought, hey, for all they anticipated, they thought Shelby was about to, or at least that area in general, was about to be something super special. Maybe, as Joshua had mentioned, in the likes of Vegas or something like that. But they were having some success, but they jumped out there a little bit too early, a little bit over their head. Dan mentions Ketchel started career in Butte. A lot of other tough, but yes, indeed, good stuff there, Dan. Thanks for sharing there, buddy. So Ketchel, yeah, he's been there, but yeah, Butte, I would say that's the Montana fight town. You could say Butte, Montana. Shelby, they're known for the biggest fight and the biggest failure. I guess you could say that's the biggest fight and biggest failure. So it's unfortunate, but yeah. Joshua says, I've seen all 15 rounds of the fights. Gibbons did what he did not to get the KO. He held and stopped Dempsey. It was arming power shot, still scored for. It was clear for Dempsey. It was a clear win for Dempsey for the most part. But many people thought that Dempsey was going to go in there and just kind of take his head off or whatever and stop him. So give Tommy that in terms of surviving. Unfortunately, though, just not enough to, really threaten Dempsey in that way. So it wasn't even one of those cases of him outboxing Dempsey, but it was more so that survival mode. And maybe that was him being in his head a little bit too much leading into it, because he was very confident coming into it. And I spoke about some of the things he knew what he needed to do preparation-wise. And if you think about Dempsey and the guys that troubled him, you think of a Gene Tuddy or something like that. Tommy Gibbons, he fit that mold of being a guy that could trouble Dempsey. But I think he was probably a little bit too into his own head there. And Dempsey hadn't been in the ring since 2021 or 1921. This took place in 1923. Dempsey hadn't been in the ring since 1921. He was out having a good time, but I think, maybe Gibbons was just a little bit too much in his own head. Probably got kickbacks from Texas. Hey, maybe there, Dan, you got to remember, in order for your town to be put on the map, you needed a big sport event. Oh, yeah, that definitely helps right there. That definitely helps. Rodolfo said, got it. So they thought they were going to make a good investment. Yeah, that was the anticipation right there for years to come right there. That was going to bring an influx of people, businesses, etc. But doesn't work like that, at least from a guarantee perspective. Joshua says, well, if you're holding Dempsey and stopping Dempsey and landing his best shots, you have a good chance to last. Yep, indeed there. So, it wasn't like a great fight. As Joshua noted there, in their videos out there, as Josh mentioned, their video out there on the fight. I didn't include it in this because it was more so about the story leading into it. I felt as far as we heard about it, like this town almost being bankrupted, and technically I guess you could say it was. I just wanted to dive a little bit further in there. So I didn't focus on the fight, but as Joshua mentioned, it wasn't a great fight. So it had that effect too. Like even say from a closed circuit perspective, from a resale perspective, it wasn't a great fight in that sense. We all know that, and we get some of those today. We think they're going to be something, and then they really only have that value of watching it right then and there, and you don't really go back to kind of check it out like that. Of course, us who love history, we'll go check it out. But if you're there in that time, I'd imagine, hearing about it and all that stuff, the word traveling about the fight in itself, then yeah, it's not one that's gonna do a ton for you in that perspective because it didn't have that replay value in that sense. It's kind of like sending Ronaldo to the Saudi league, but in this case, it didn't work. Did it work in the Saudi league? Tony was using his feet. Gibbons was wrestling. Indeed, there, Josh. Indeed, there. And Tommy was capable. He was capable, but yeah, he just didn't have the right game plan whatsoever. Clubber D says, random question, has there been any known fighters from Montana since it has a history of having fights? That's a good question. I can't think of any off top. I know there are some. I'd imagine there are some. But yeah, off top, I can't think of any. Joshua, you know? It was one of Dempsey's best fights and really showed how he could do well when he is not blowing someone out in 2 to 3 rounds. Oh, yes, indeed there. Indeed there. Any Montana fighters? I can't think of any here off top. I know there had to have been some that were some stalwarts from Montana. Here, I'm going to pull up this thing, this AIM. Let me see here. Ainsworth Sports. I'm going to share, excuse me, I'll share my screen real quick. I've run across this site before. Now, this is a site that is out there. Let me see. The entire screen. All right, I'm going to share my screen real quick. This is, hopefully you all can see that. I think you can. Ainsworth Sports, Montana. I've run across this site before, and maybe some people are familiar with it. I'm only familiar with it because I've run across it before, but they do a good job. They provide their ranking. Some you might not agree with. Jim Barry. I know Jim Barry. Roger Rouse. Light heavyweight. Don't know him. Marvin Campbell. No. Jack Reeves. Richie Fontaine. Maybe I've heard that name. So these are who this site lists. Anybody familiar with any of those? I am familiar with Jim Barry, but that's about it right here. In terms of seeing these other names, I don't know for sure that I know them. Fontaine, maybe I've run across. It's just a cool name. Maybe I've run across it in some settings, but I don't know. And according to this, in their ranking, and I don't know exactly how they rank their fighters, but they have this Roger Rouse guy at light heavyweight. So 1948 is when he came about. Let's see here. Roger Rouse. Let's look him up. See who was in there with, because I don't know him. Boxer. Roger Rouse. I'm going to go by Box Rec here. All right. Roger Rouse. Anaconda, Montana. Never heard of it, but Anaconda. So 39, 23, and 4. 66 bouts. So, okay. So that's about legit, because I was wondering if he had a bunch of no decisions or anything, but yeah, it's kind of outside of that era where it was at least more prominent. So yeah, this is him kind of as he is here. Let's see here. See if we have any known names here that he went in there with. Bob Foster. Okay, he fought Bob Foster in 1970. Okay. Third round, looks like he was stopped, or his corner decided to hang it up. All right, so yeah, twice in there with Bob Foster. Got knocked out in the 5th round. The first time, Dick Tiger in there with Dick Tiger. Excellent fighter there. Looks like maybe on the back end of Dick Tiger's career, but 12th round. But world light heavyweight. So he got a shot at the light heavyweight title. Wow. So no, this was in Tiger had the title. So yeah, I guess not fully back in. So Dick Tiger, wow. So he was in there. I wonder how they made that happen. A shot at Dick Tiger for the world title. Interesting. Oh, Henry Hank. Okay, he beat Henry Hank. Rascona. I know Henry Hank. Eddie Cotton. Okay. Don. No, Don Turner. Eddie Cotton. I know of him. Don't know a ton about him. Okay, Henry Hank again. Henry Hank. Hey, he's got some good video out there, and he's pretty damn good. Okay, so maybe that's how it is. So it looks like he beat Henry Hank a couple of times. Interesting. So there it goes. Hey, this guy got a shot at the world title. Kept working at it, but he was on a little streak here when he got that world title shot with Dick Tiger. And of course, Bob Foster's the one that took the title from Dick Tiger. So yes, so he got 2 world title shots because this was for the world heavyweight or world light heavyweight title when he fought Dick Tiger or Bob Foster there in '70. Interesting. So he got 2 world title shots. Montana guy right there. So hey, you got to give him props. He made it happen. Hold up. Let me stop this here. All right there. All right, folks. Interesting, right? Let's see here. Let me get here. So there you go, Clubber D. Looks like there were a few people there. A few people out of Montana. The top guy there got a shot at the world light heavyweight title twice. Joshua says is one of the Dempsey best. Oh yeah, indeed. Wasn't Ketchel from Montana? Ketchel's from Montana. He's a Michigan assassin. I think he's Michigan, but I could be wrong. If you were born in Montana, I think he's Michigan assassin. Yeah, Joe Hip. Wow. You know Joe Hip there, Joshua? I don't know Joe Hip. Montana, stand up. Let's get it. Just Google it. Ketchel. Oh, yeah. Michigan. Let's go, Clubber D. Montana, stand up. Lots of greats got started in Butte. Maurice Thompson lived in Butte most life. He was 2-0 versus Ketchel. Oh, that's awesome right there. Dominated Ketchel and many others. Awesome right there, Dan. Good stuff. So they had some people there that came out of Montana. Very interesting. At one point, I was going to do a video of the top fighters from each state. Excuse me, or of course, based on my opinion, I guess you could say. But I was going to start from A and go to Z essentially, and I started with Alabama. You would have seen that one likely, and I don't think I got beyond Alabama. That was the first one. I was just going in alphabetical order, but there were going to be some challenges when I got to certain states. Montana being one of them. Alaska, that was going to be a challenge. Vermont and places like Vermont, and I think that was going to be a challenge. There used to be fights that went down in Burlington, Vermont. I just know this from traveling there. I was looking into it because I traveled to Burlington, Vermont back in 2017, I believe, or something like that. And I wanted to look into the fight game there. Wasn't a ton of stuff, but I guess they used to host some fights in Burlington, Vermont, like back in the day, but I didn't really see a bunch of stuff in terms of what's happening now, though I'm sure there are things happening, of course. But that being said, yes, certain states were just going to pose a challenge in general, like the Dakotas, they're going to pose a challenge in terms of the top fighter is likely going to be someone in a lot of cases we haven't really heard of, even guys I hadn't heard of. And some of them would have been even more on the modern side, just in general. So very interesting, very interesting indeed. Dan says Joe Hip, tough heavyweight. Okay, good stuff there. Joe Hip, tough heavyweight. Check him out there. But hey, Montana, stand up. So I guess that sporting event there with in Shelby with Dempsey and Gibbons, I mean, that's a standout event that has happened there for sure, and as well as others as mentioned, but that would have to be the standout. I mean, even though for the wrong reasons, they put their name on the map. So you look up anything Shelby, Montana, generally, you're going to see mention of this Dempsey Gibbons fight because of the magnitude of it at that time. Of course, it did get the media coverage in terms of papers, etc. But that being said, we know it didn't live up to that overall expectation or whatnot. So they did put their place in history, and therefore we're still mentioning them. But with that, no, it's all good. So appreciate everyone taking the time to drop in, check this out with me as we were going through this. Now, I will try to set something up here for next week to keep this going, talking boxing history. Working on a video right now that should be a very interesting one. Oh, yeah, and another thing I want to mention, I'm going to see if I can get them on, but Tommy Gibbons and Mike Gibbons, they have a relative who is alive and covers them. I want to see if I can get him on the channel, so I'm going to try and work on it. It's Dr. Gibbons. He has a website. He actually wrote a book on the Shelby, Montana fight between Dempsey and Gibbons. So his grandfather was Tommy Gibbons, and of course, uncle being Mike Gibbons there. Or great uncle Mike Gibbons. So I'm gonna try to get him on. I think it'll be pretty dope to get his perspective. We have someone from the Gibbons family line who is out there doing some things there, making it happen. So we'll see what's up. So I did want to mention that. So if it happens, I'll definitely let you know, announce that. It'll be a heck of a thing to be able to chat with them. Again, thanks everyone who dropped in to sort of go through this piece of it with me. More to come. So be on the lookout. Interesting video coming for sure. And hey, I'm going to try to kick off some more things. But as always, feel free to reach out. And I'm going to post something regarding that book. As mentioned, the book from my man, Mark Allen Baker, Jack Dillon. Maybe I'll have to do a live on Jack Dillon as well. Man, insane fighter. One of the best ever right there. And more people should know about him for sure. The Hoosier Bearcat. But with that, man, I appreciate everyone who dropped by, showed some love right there. Getcha lost to Kid Lee, the Montana Jack Sullivan interview. Okay, got you there, Dad. Good stuff. Well, I appreciate all of you being here. And I will be back here at a later time. So be on the lookout for next week. Maybe next Wednesday, something else. So salute to you all. Enjoy the rest of your night, my people.